The massive monitoring station Nexus Prime drifted through the darkness of space like a sleeping giant. Its gleaming metal surface stretched for kilometers, covered in countless sensors that constantly watched the borders of the mighty Galactic Empire. Inside the station's control room, dozens of alien officers worked at their posts, their various tentacles, claws, and appendages moving across glowing control panels. Officer Velta had been doing this job for 15 years. His purple tentacles moved with practiced ease across the sensor controls, reading the familiar patterns that appeared on his screens every day. Merchant ships, military patrols, the occasional asteroid. Nothing ever changed out here on the frontier. Empire had ruled this part of the galaxy for over 1,000 years. Their technology was the most advanced anyone had ever seen. Their weapons could destroy entire planets. Their shields could stop any attack. Velta often wondered if they even needed border stations like this one anymore. Who would dare challenge the Empire? Another quiet day, muttered his partner, Officer Crickstal, whose 6 eyes were focused on the communication arrays. Sometimes I think we're just here to watch empty space. Veltar was about to agree when something made him freeze. A small blip had appeared on his screen. Just for a second, then it was gone. He blinked his large black eyes and leaned closer to the display. Maybe he had imagined it. The sensors showed nothing unusual, just the same empty space they had been monitoring for years. Then it happened again. This time the blip was bigger, and moving fast. What in the 7 moons? Veltar whispered, his tentacles dancing frantically across the controls. He adjusted the sensors, increased their range, checked for malfunctions. Everything seemed to be working perfectly. The blip appeared again, much larger now. The computer began calculating its speed and Veltara's heart nearly stopped. According to his instruments, whatever this thing was, it was moving at speeds that should be impossible. No ship in the known galaxy could travel that fast without being torn apart by the forces involved. Commander, Veltar's voice cracked with panic as he activated the emergency communication system. Unknown contact, bearing 2 speed, This can't be right. Across the control room, Commander Thexel looked up from his reports. He was a veteran officer with over 30 years of experience, and his 4 eyes had seen many strange things in his career. But the fear in Veltar's voice made his blood run cold. Thexel rushed across the room, his heavy footsteps echoing in the suddenly quiet control center. Other officers stopped their work and turned to watch as their commander leaned over. Veltar stationed. The numbers on the screen made no sense. The object was now clearly visible on multiple sensors, and it was moving faster than anything in their databases. The computer kept trying to identify it, but every scan came back with the same result. Unknown. Ship configuration unknown, Veltar reported, his voice shaking. Hull composition unknown. The computer can't match it to any species in our records. Thexel studied the readings with growing alarm. In all his years of service, he had never seen anything like this. The Empire had detailed records of every spacefaring species in the galaxy. They knew every type of ship, every weapon system, every form of technology that existed, yet this vessel was completely foreign to them. What about the propulsion system? Thexel asked. Can we identify how it's moving so fast? Veltar checked his instruments again, hoping he had made a mistake. But the readings were clear. There is no propulsion signature, Commander. No engine exhaust, no energy trail, no gravitational disturbance. It's as if the ship is just moving through space, without any visible means of propulsion. The control room fell silent except for the humming of machinery. Every officer was now staring at the main display screen, which showed the mysterious vessel continuing its impossible journey toward the heart of the Empire. Crickstow tried opening communication channels. Unknown vessel. This is Imperial border. Station Nexus Prime. You have entered restricted Imperial space. Please identify yourself and state your intentions. No response. Unknown vessel. You are ordered to halt and prepare for inspection. Failure to comply will result in defensive action. Still nothing. The ship ignored all hailing frequencies, all warning beacons, all territorial markers that should have been impossible to miss. It simply continued its path toward the Empire's core worlds, as if the most powerful military force in the galaxy was nothing more than an annoyance. Lexel watched the vessels progress with a growing sense of dread. In 30 years of military service, he had learned to trust his instincts, and right now, every instinct was screaming that something terrible was about to happen. The ship was moving with purpose. It knew exactly where it was going, and it clearly didn't care about Imperial authority, Imperial warnings, or Imperial threats. Alert the Imperial fleet, Vexor commanded, his voice heavy with the weight of what he was about to unleash. Code Black, unknown, hostile inbound, all available ships to intercept immediately. As alarms began blaring throughout Nexus Prime, Lexor continued to stare at the screen. Whatever was coming toward them had technology beyond anything they understood, and it was heading straight for the heart of their civilization. The Bridge of the Iron Dominion was a sight that struck fear into the hearts of enemies across the galaxy. Stretching nearly a kilometer from bow to stern, this massive dreadnought was the pride of the Imperial fleet. Its weapons could crack planets in half. Its shields had never been breached, and standing at its center was Admiral Corvex, a battle-hardened warrior whose victories were legendary throughout the Empire. But today, for the first time in his 40-year career, the Admiral felt something he had never experienced before: genuine fear. The holographic display showed a three-dimensional map of the surrounding space, with hundreds of Imperial ships positioned in perfect battle formation. Destroyers, cruisers, and battleships formed defensive lines that should have been impenetrable. Yet all of this massive firepower was focused on a single unknown vessel that seemed to mock everything they thought they knew about warfare. Report. Admiral Corvex commanded, his deep voice echoing through the command center. Around him, dozens of officers from different alien species worked frantically at their stations. Reptilian saurians monitored weapon systems, multi-armed octopoids managed communications, flying Terrans coordinated fleet movements from their aerial perches. Intelligence Chief Nexora stepped forward, her insectoid features tense with worry. In her 6 hands she held data tablets containing information that defied explanation. Admiral, the situation is unlike anything in our records. The unknown vessel continues to approach our defensive perimeter, but its behavior is ... impossible. She activated a recording from their sensors. On the main screen they watched as the mysterious ship appeared to flicker in and out of existence. One moment it was clearly visible on all scanners, the next it simply wasn't there. Then it would reappear somewhere completely different, as if it had teleported across space. The ship phases in and out of our sensors, Nexara explained, her voice tight with frustration. One moment it's there, the next it's somewhere else. Our targeting systems cannot lock onto it. Every time our computers try to track it, the vessel vanishes from our detection grid. Admiral Corvex studied the display with growing alarm. The Empire's technology was supposed to be unmatched. Their sensors could track objects moving at light speed. Their weapons could hit targets across solar systems. Yet this single ship was making their entire fleet look helpless. Size estimates, the Admiral demanded, hoping for some piece of information that would make sense. Approximately 800 meters in length, Nexara replied, much smaller than our capital ships. But Admiral ... She hesitated, checking her instruments again, as if hoping the readings were wrong. The energy readings suggest technology centuries beyond our current capabilities. The bridge fell silent except for the humming of machinery. 800 meters was tiny compared to the Iron Dominion's massive 5-kilometer length. It should have been nothing more than a target for their smallest weapons. Yet the energy signatures coming from that small vessel were staggering. Show me the power analysis, Corvex ordered. Nexara's hands trembled as she brought up the energy readings. This single vessel appears to generate more power than our entire battle group. The reactor signatures are unlike anything we've ever encountered. If these readings are accurate, that ship could power an entire planet with energy to spare. Murmurs of fear began to ripple through the command center. Officers exchanged worried glances. Some began backing away from their stations, as if distance might somehow protect them from what they were seeing. The Galactic Empire had ruled for 1,000 years by maintaining absolute technological superiority. They had crushed rebellions, conquered star systems, and eliminated entire species that dared to oppose them. Their philosophy was simple: overwhelming force applied without mercy. It had never failed them, until now. Admiral called out Weapons Officer Grixton from his station. Our forward scouts are reporting additional anomalies. The unknown vessel appears to be scanning our ships, but we cannot detect the scanning beams. It's as if they can see us perfectly while remaining invisible to our sensors. Communications still receiving no response to our hails, added Chief Operator Zillanex. The vessel ignores all attempts at contact. It shows no signs of slowing or changing course. Admiral Corvex clenched his clawed fists as he processed this information. In 4 decades of military command, he had faced rebels, pirates, and hostile alien species. He had always found a way to win through superior firepower and tactical brilliance, but this situation was completely outside his experience. The unknown ship wasn't behaving like any enemy he had ever encountered. It didn't attack, didn't threaten, didn't even acknowledge their presence. It simply continued its approach toward the Empire's core worlds, completely ignoring the most powerful military force in the galaxy. "What are our tactical options?" he asked his senior staff. Limphead Sir admitted, Fleet Tactical Coordinator Vexerin, "We cannot target what we cannot track. Our most powerful weapons require targeting locks, and this vessel phases out of our sensors before we can establish lock-on." "What about area bombardment? Saturate the entire region with firepower." "We considered that." Admiral Bethessel's phasing ability means it might not even be in our dimension when the weapon's fire reaches its position. We could waste our entire ammunition supply hitting empty space. Admiral Korvex turned back to the holographic display, studying the approaching vessel with a strategic mind that had never failed him before. But every solution he considered ran into the same problem. They were facing technologies so advanced that it made their own capabilities seem primitive. "Prepare the Omega Protocol," he ordered grimly, his voice carrying the weight of a decision that could change the galaxy forever. The bridge fell completely silent. Every officer knew what the Omega Protocol meant. It was the Empire's final option when facing an existential threat. Complete evacuation of the core worlds, the abandonment of their capital, the retreat of their entire civilization to the Outer Rim territories. That it was a plan that had never been used because no threat had ever been serious enough to warrant it. Sir whispered his aide, "Are you certain? The Omega Protocol would mean abandoning everything we've built." Admiral Korvex continued staring at the display, watching the mysterious vessel continue its impossible approach. "If we cannot stop this ship, we may need to evacuate the core worlds. Better to retreat and survive than to face annihilation." After 99 failed attempts to establish communication with the mysterious vessel, Admiral Korvex was preparing to give the order for desperate measures. The unknown ship had been ignoring their hails for hours, moving steadily toward the Empire's core worlds like an unstoppable force of nature. Every officer on the bridge was tense, waiting for their commander's final decision. Then, without warning, the main view screen flickered to life. The image that appeared was unlike anything the Imperial forces had ever seen. Instead of the expected alien warlord or robotic intelligence, they found themselves looking at what appeared to be a young male of an unknown species. His skin was pale with a slight tan, his hair was black and neatly styled, and he wore a simple, blue uniform that looked almost casual compared to the ornate, military dress of the Empire. But what struck everyone most was his expression. He looked completely relaxed, even friendly. There was no anger, no aggression, no hint of the warrior mentality they expected from someone commanding such an advanced vessel. He appeared to be around 30 years old, with dark eyes that seemed curious rather than hostile. "This is Captain Li Huyan of the Earth vessel Stellar Dawn," the figure said calmly, his voice carrying a tone of polite professionalism. "Sorry for the delay in responding. We were running diagnostics on our translation matrix." The bridge erupted in controlled chaos as Imperial translators scrambled to process this alien language. The ship's computers had never encountered these sounds before. The linguistic patterns were completely foreign, using tones and structures that didn't match any known species in their vast databases. Chief Translator Yexmia worked frantically at her station, her multiple arms typing commands at lightning speed. "The language appears to be completely unknown, Admiral. The computer is attempting to build a translation protocol from context clues and mathematical references." Admiral Korvex leaned forward in his command chair, studying the alien being, with a mixture of confusion and wariness. Everything about this situation defied his expectations. The creature looked so ordinary. There were no visible weapons, no threatening postures, no signs of the advanced technology that his ship clearly possessed. "I am Admiral Korvex of the Galactic Empire," he responded, his deep voice carrying the authority of 1,000 years of Imperial dominance. "You have entered restricted space without authorization. State your intentions immediately." The translation systems worked overtime to convert his words into the alien language. On the screen, Captain Lee appeared to listen carefully, then smiled, in what seemed to be a genuinely friendly manner. "Greetings, Admiral," Lee replied, inclining his head slightly in what might have been a gesture of respect. "We're explorers from the Andromeda Galaxy. We've been traveling for about 3 months now, looking for new civilizations to meet. Your galaxy showed such promising signs of intelligent life. The words hit the bridge like a physical blow. Every officer froze in place, their various alien features registering shock and disbelief. The translation had to be wrong. It had to be. Admiral Corvex felt his blood turn to ice. Did he just say Andromeda Galaxy? Intelligence Chief Nexora quickly confirmed the translation. Yes, Admiral. Computer analysis shows high confidence in the linguistic interpretation. He claims to have traveled from the Andromeda Galaxy. The bridge fell completely silent except for the humming of machinery. Every creature present understood the implications of what they had just heard. The Andromeda Galaxy was over 2.5 million light-years away, even traveling at the speed of light without stopping. Such a journey would take millions of years. The Empire's fastest ships, using their most advanced technology, would need thousands of millennia to make such a trip. The energy requirements alone would drain the resources of entire star systems. It was theoretically possible but practically impossible for any known civilization. Yet, this young alien was claiming he had made the journey in 3 months. 3 months, whispered Tactical Officer Grixton, his reptilian features pale with shock. Our fastest scout ships would need millions of years for that distance. Captain Lee continued speaking, apparently unaware of the bombshell he had just dropped. We come in peace. Our science officer Park Ji-hai is eager to share knowledge with your people. Perhaps we could arrange a cultural exchange. As if summoned by his words, another figure appeared beside him on the screen. This was clearly a female of the same species, with long black hair tied back in a practical style and wearing the same simple blue uniform. She looked even younger than the captain, perhaps in her mid-20s, and her eyes sparkled with excitement. Hello, Park Ji-hai said enthusiastically, waving at the screen in a gesture that somehow conveyed friendliness, despite being completely alien. We've been studying your civilization's radio signals and energy signatures for the past few weeks. Your technology is fascinating. So different from what we've encountered in other galaxies. Other galaxies. Plural. Fleet Communications Officer Zilenex nearly fell from his station. Admiral, did she just say, other galaxies? How many civilizations have these beings encountered? The implications were staggering. If these humans had truly visited multiple galaxies, then their technology was so far beyond anything the Empire possessed that comparison was meaningless. The Empire had struggled to explore even a fraction of their own galaxy in 1,000 years of expansion. Admiral Corvex tried to maintain his composure, but inside he was reeling. Every assumption about galactic hierarchy, about technological development, about the Empire's place in the universe, was crumbling before his eyes. You claim to be explorers, he said carefully, trying to process information that challenged everything he believed. What do you want from our territory? Captain Lee's expression remained friendly and open. Nothing more than friendship and knowledge exchange. We've found that meeting new civilizations always leads to wonderful discoveries for both sides. We have much to learn from each other. Science Officer Park Ji-hai nodded eagerly. Your quantum communication networks are particularly interesting. We use a different approach in our home galaxy, but your methods show remarkable ingenuity given your technological constraints. Technological constraints. The phrase hung in the air like a death sentence. The Empire's most advanced technology was being politely described as constrained by beings who apparently hopped between galaxies like the Empire moved between star systems. Admiral Corvex realized that everything had changed. The balance of power in the universe was not at all what they had believed. And these friendly explorers from another galaxy had just turned their understanding of reality upside down with nothing more than a casual conversation. Admiral Corvex had spent his entire career dealing with rebellious species and hostile aliens. In every case, the solution had been the same: demonstrate overwhelming imperial power and watch enemies surrender. He decided to apply this proven strategy to these strange humans despite the growing unease in his gut. Enough pleasantries, the Admiral declared, his voice taking on the commanding tone that had broken the will of countless enemies. You will submit to escort by Imperial forces. This is standard protocol for all unknown vessels entering our territory. On the view screen, Captain Lee's expression remained friendly, but something subtle changed in his posture. His smile stayed in place, but his eyes became more focused, more serious. I appreciate the offer, Admiral, but we prefer to maintain our independence. We're peaceful visitors, not subjects of any empire. The polite refusal hit Admiral like a slap across the face. In 1,000 years of imperial expansion, no one had ever simply said no to their demands. Pirates fought back with desperate fury. Rebels launched suicide attacks, but no one had ever just calmly declined to obey Imperial authority as if it meant nothing. "This is not a request," Admiral Corvex growled, his four eyes narrowing with anger around him. The bridge crew tensed for combat. Weapons officers moved to their targeting stations. Shield operators prepared defensive systems. "You will comply immediately or face the consequences." Captain Lee sighed, and for the first time, he looked genuinely disappointed. "I was hoping we could handle this diplomatically. Lieutenant Kim Dae-yoon, please show them our maneuvering capabilities." Another figure appeared on the screen beside the captain. This was a young human female with short black hair and the same blue uniform. She looked to be in her early 20s, with an expression that was all business. "Understood, Captain. Activating demonstration protocol." "What are they talking about?" muttered Intelligence Chief Nick Sarah. "What demonstration?" They got their answer in the next few seconds. What happened next would be talked about in military academies for generations to come. Assuming there were any academies left after this encounter, it would be remembered as the most terrifying 30 seconds in Imperial military history. The moment when the Empire's absolute confidence in their technological superiority died forever. The stellar dawn simply vanished. Not slowly. Not with any visible effects or energy discharges. One moment it was there on their sensors, clearly visible on the main screen. The next moment it was gone as if it had never existed at all. "Where did it go?" shouted Tactical Officer Grixton, his clawed hands flying over his control panels. "All sensors show negative contact." "Impossible," Admiral Corvex roared. "Ships don't just disappear. Find it." The bridge erupted in controlled chaos as every officer worked frantically to relocate the missing vessel. Scanner operators increased their range to maximum. Communications officers tried to re-establish contact. Weapons officers searched for any trace of energy signature. Then Lieutenant Kim Dae-yoon's voice came through the comm system. "Crystal clear and impossibly calm. We're currently positioned directly behind your fleet, Admiral. Perhaps you'd like to take a look." Admiral spun toward the rear display screens. There, floating calmly behind their entire battle group, was the stellar dawn. It had somehow traveled across dozens of kilometers of space instantly, appearing behind hundreds of Imperial warships without triggering a single alarm. "How did they?" began Weapons Officer Grixton, but his words were cut off as the human ship vanished again. This time it reappeared right in the middle of their formation, directly between three massive Imperial battleships. The crew watched in horror as the stellar dawn moved forward, approaching the nearest battleship at what should have been a collision course. "They're going to ram the dead Astuda," someone screamed. But instead of crashing into the battleship's armored hull, something impossible happened. The stellar dawn passed right through the Imperial vessel as if it were made of smoke. The human ship phased through the massive warship like a ghost, its hull overlapping with the battleship's structure without any apparent effect on either vessel. "By the Seven Moons," whispered Admiral Corvex, his voice barely audible. "They're phasing through solid matter." The demonstration wasn't over. The stellar dawn continued its impossible dance through the Imperial fleet, phasing through to more battleships before materializing directly above the Iron Dominion. The human vessel hovered there, just a few hundred meters above the flagships. Bridge logs close enough that they could have exchanged personal messages through handheld communicators. Captain Lee's voice came through the communication system again, still maintaining that maddeningly calm and friendly tone. "Our quantum displacement drives allow us to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. We can phase in and out of your reality at will." The bridge of the Iron Dominion had become a nightmare of screaming alarms and flashing warning lights. Every defensive system was trying to target the human ship, but their computers couldn't lock onto something that wasn't entirely in their dimension. "We could visit your engine room right now if you'd like," Captain Lee continued conversationally, "though we wouldn't want to be rude by just dropping in unannounced." The casual way he mentioned penetrating their most secure areas sent chills through every officer present. If these humans could phase through solid matter, then no defense was effective against them. Armor meant nothing. Shields were useless. The Empire's most advanced fortifications were as vulnerable as empty space. "Weapon systems cannot achieve target lock," reported Chief Gunnery Officer Vextel, his voice cracking with stress. "The vessel exists partially outside our dimensional space. Our targeting computers don't know how to track it. Shields are completely ineffective against phased matter," added Defense Coordinator Rixton. "They could materialize inside our hull at any time." Admiral Corvex stared up at the human ship floating above them like a sword hanging over their heads. In 40 years of military service, He had never felt so helpless. The Empire's most powerful fleet, with weapons that could destroy planets and shields that had never been breached, was completely helpless against a single vessel from another galaxy, reappeared in its original position in front of the Imperial fleet, as if the entire demonstration had been nothing more than a casual exercise. As I said, Admiral Captain Lee continued with that same gentle smile, his voice carrying no hint of threat or aggression. We come in peace, but we also come as equals. We hope you can respect that. The word equals hit Admiral Korvex like a physical blow. These humans weren't asking for permission or begging for mercy. They were politely informing the Empire that they would do as they pleased, and there was absolutely nothing the most powerful military force in the galaxy could do to stop them. For the first time in Imperial history, they had encountered a civilization that was not just their equal, but so far beyond them technologically, that resistance was meaningless. The Imperial Palace on Zentros Prime had never seen chaos like this. For 3 straight days, emergency council sessions had been running around the clock. The massive crystal halls that once echoed with confident declarations of Imperial dominance now buzzed with panicked whispers and desperate planning. Emperor Vaxdor sat upon his legendary crystal throne, a seat carved from a single massive gem that had taken 1,000 slaves 50 years to complete. The throne was designed to intimidate visitors, to remind them of the Empire's absolute power. But today, the Emperor felt smaller than he had ever felt in his long reign. Around him, his most trusted advisors delivered reports that grew more terrifying with each passing hour. The holographic displays showed star maps with red dots marking human vessel locations throughout their territory. There were too many dots. Far too many. General Quexmar stepped forward, his battle-scarred face grim with defeat. In 40 years of military service, he had never retreated from any enemy. Today, he looked like a broken warrior. Your Majesty, he began, his voice hollow and defeated, our long-range sensors have detected 17 more ships, each one more advanced than the last. They're exploring our entire galaxy, simultaneously through something they call quantum tunneling. The Emperor's clawed hands gripped the arms of his throne until the crystal began to crack. 17 ships. And each one could destroy our entire fleet, based on the capabilities we observed from the first vessel. Yes, Your Majesty. But it's worse than that. These ships appear to be conducting detailed scans of every system they visit. They're mapping our entire civilization. Intelligence Director Yulseth, whose network of spies had once seemed all-knowing, now looked as lost as a child. Your Majesty, we've managed to intercept some of their communications. The information is ... disturbing. Speak, the Emperor commanded. Their youngest crew member is 19 years old. She speaks of crossing galactic distances like we discussed traveling between planets. These beings treat intergalactic travel as routine as we consider system-to-system jumps. The throne room fell silent except for the distant hum of the palace's energy systems. Every advisor, every general, every intelligence officer was processing the same terrifying realization. Councillor Mexrin, ancient even by Imperial standards, had served 5 different emperors over the centuries. His wisdom had guided the Empire through countless crises. Now, at nearly 300 years old, he spoke the words that everyone was thinking but no one dared to say. If these are their explorers, he said slowly, his aged voice carrying the weight of terrible understanding, what must their warriors be capable of? The question hung in the air like a death sentence. If civilian explorers possessed technology that made the Empire's military seem primitive, then actual human military forces would be beyond comprehension. There's more, Your Majesty, Intelligence Director Yulseth continued reluctantly. These aren't even their species' military forces, according to our analysis of their communications. They're scientists and explorers, university researchers, on what they call a cultural exchange mission. Emperor Vaxdor felt the foundations of his worldview crumbling. The Empire had been built on the simple principle that superior technology meant absolute power. They had conquered hundreds of species by demonstrating overwhelming force. Now they faced beings who possessed technology so advanced that the Empire's greatest weapons were meaningless. Meanwhile, millions of light years away, aboard the Stellar Dawn, Captain Lee Hayen was having a very different conversation. He stood in the ship's comfortable observation lounge, looking out at the beautiful nebula they were passing through, while reviewing the day's cultural exchange with Science Officer Park Jahai. The Imperial forces seem nervous, Lee observed, sipping from a cup of earth coffee that somehow tasted perfect, despite being synthesized from local materials. I hope we didn't accidentally offend them with our arrival. Park Ji-hai looked up from her research tablet, her eyes bright with excitement. Actually, their reaction is fascinating from an anthropological perspective. Their entire social structure appears to be based on technological dominance. Meeting a more advanced civilization has probably shaken their core beliefs. Their technology is quite impressive though, Lee noted. Primitive by our standards, but they've accomplished so much with so little. Those energy weapons of theirs show real ingenuity. Park nodded enthusiastically. I'd love to help them develop better propulsion systems. With a few improvements, they could probably achieve intergalactic travel within a few centuries instead of millennia. Captain Lee smiled at his science officer's enthusiasm, but his expression grew more thoughtful. Let's take it slow, Ji-hai. First contact protocols exist for a reason. We don't want to overwhelm them with too much advanced technology too quickly. You're right, of course, Park agreed. Cultural development needs to happen naturally, though I have to admit, I'm excited to see what they might discover on their own. Neither of them realized that their casual conversation about helping a primitive civilization develop intergalactic travel was exactly the kind of thing that was causing panic throughout the Empire. To them, it was just friendly scientific cooperation. To the Empire, it was proof that humans saw them as barely more advanced than Stone Age savages. Back on Zentros Prime, Emperor Vaxtal had made his decision. Standing from his crystal throne, he addressed his assembled advisors with the authority of a ruler who had commanded the galaxy for over a century. The Galactic Empire will adapt or perish, he declared, his voice carrying throughout the vast throne room. These humans have demonstrated that the universe is far larger and more dangerous than we ever imagined. But perhaps, if we are very careful and very lucky, we might survive to see a new age of cooperation among the stars. General Quexmar stepped forward. Your orders, Your Majesty. Stand down all military operations against the human vessels. Begin preparations for formal diplomatic contact, and start planning for a complete restructuring of our understanding of galactic politics. The Emperor paused, looking out through the massive windows at the stars that he had once believed belonged to his empire. We are no longer the supreme power in this galaxy. We must learn to live in a universe where others are our equals, or our superiors. As the Imperial Palace buzzed with the activity of a civilization learning to accept its new place in the cosmic order, the humans continued their peaceful exploration, completely unaware that their casual display of technological superiority had forever changed the balance of power in the galaxy. They were simply doing what humans had always done, exploring, learning, and hoping to make new friends among the stars. The end.